Welcome, everyone, to our Monday Momentum Call. I'm so happy to see everyone. And for those of you who are listening by recording, we're so glad you're investing this time in that. This is our final week of August. Oh, my goodness, y'all. I've told many people already this. I plan to work harder this week than any week since I can remember, because we have so much goodness to offer, and I don't want anyone to miss out on that. I really don't. So I have started making all my lists. My lists, of course, include those who's shipping, all my customers, former partners, because what former partner doesn't want to come back with what we're offering today and the rest of this week? Cancel customers. What customer doesn't want to come back with what we're offering? I mean, if they're going to come back, what we're offering now certainly would be a good reason for them to come back. So I've personally gone to my back office. You can find all this information. um, we've reviewed how to find this information on previous calls, so I'm not going to review it here. If you need to know that, you can get with me personally, because I really want you to be able to find all your former partners and all your former canceled customers. And I want you to be able to work from those lists. Hopefully, you have your memory joggers, you have all of that. But I don't want to leave any stone unturned this week. That's my personal conviction. It may not be yours, and it's fine if it's not yours, but that's my personal conviction, because in 24 years, I've never seen the company offer what we've offered this month, with double bonuses for AP Plus, $200 back, on a P Plus. Not to mention, you get $200 too for sponsoring them, along with getting over 100 in sales profit and 100 in free products. That's $400 of free stuff. 300 cash, 100 in products. And lock in at 15% off from that point forward in your family's products when you get P Plus. So we don't want to leave any stone unturned, in my view. Um, Lynn said something very wise right before I think many of you got on the call. Um, she gave us a reminder of what Stacy Whitmer shared about: be sure before you message that person, you think about that individual person. Don't just come up with a message that you're going to throw up on every single person that is the same. I'm talking to myself here, because I could tend to just go into what I just said to y'all. I mean, in a, customer friendly version of that, you know what I mean? Or a prospect friendly version of that. I don't really want to do that. That would not be a wise thing to do. I want to think about what their need is, who they are, what maybe would get them interested in Juice Plus, why they, were interested before, when they were a former customer, how long they invested in Juice Plus. I have some canceled customers who were on Juice Plus for 15 or 20 years who canceled. I might have a thought about why that is with the current financial climate that we're in, but I don't really know. And I want to also give a reminder for what Sandy has told us: pick up the phone and call people, because your best way is through a telephone conversation. So think about that individual person, but make your lists. And we have two powerful events this week. Mimi Blankenship and Betsy Billies, are doing the skin health. What woman doesn't want to hear about how to make their skin healthy, prevent cancer, make their skin as beautiful as possible, all the things. There's probably no woman that doesn't want to hear those things. Truth be told, some women will come for the beauty more than the health, you know?
You could
But
add in too that she just threw this out there yesterday, Sharon. I think you saw it. She's going to talk about the latest in sunscreen.
good,
So
good. Yeah,
if that helps, say that.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, it's going to be fabulous, y'all. You don't want to miss it. And just so you know, we are going to review the rest of the science behind Juice Plus so that, they hear, that too, which is, and the healthy starts, very briefly. But we do want people to know Juice Plus does more than just help your skin. That's very important. They need to know it helps your immune system. All the things that y'all already know. So they're going to hear that. They're going to hear what makes Use Plus different. Okay, so they're going to hear that along with the skin. Very brief because the focus is skin. Then we've got the back to school event and two homeschooling moms, both who have heart of gold. Y'all have never heard Carrie Parker. She is my precious homeschooling mom of seven who is going to share her story. She's got the most beautiful heart and she is so excited about sharing. She's never shared on an event before, and I'm super excited for y'all to hear her. So invite your mamas, your grandmas, everybody to that. It's going to be shorter. It's going to have two stories instead of three. It's going to be shorter. So
Sharon, can you give us a snippet of Carrie? Because homeschool mom, um, just something else that kind of be a
yes,
teaser.
she is a homeschooling mom. Her youngest is two, her oldest is in college. She started Juice Plus after I think her third baby, um, 15 plus years ago. Um, she's a she's a sales coordinator. That doesn't matter to who you're talking to. She has great stories about eczema, autoimmune, that kind of thing. Um, Taken Juice Plus as their sole prenatal, for all of the rest of those pregnancies, and had a really healthy pregnancy. I, I'm not sure how old she is. She's probably close to, I don't know, she might be older than 40,
Her
but
picture looks like she's 25, but okay.
I know, I know. And she has a heart that loves Jesus like no other. She is such a strong believer. And you will hear about her faith in that call. So,
Awesome. Thank
um,
you.
yes, yes. So, with that, we all know that our paycheck is a direct reflection of the number of lives that we impact. And I have always told new team members that not only do we want you to have a positive Juice Plus experience, but we want you to have a positive paycheck experience. And what I've learned over 24 years is that's really important to almost everybody who comes to this business. Because even if they didn't come to it to earn an income, at some point they're going to step back and go, I'm giving a certain amount of my time to that. Is it worth it? So I've invited my husband, who was a banker, a CFO for many large companies, and a CEO ultimately. Um, I'm glad he's in charge of our finances and I'm not. I'll say that. And he's really smart when it comes um, to finances and all of that. And he's a very supportive husband. And I think that he can be a huge help to our team and to you with your husband, if that's an issue, because he wasn't always a supportive husband. And I won't go into that right now, but he grew to be such a supportive husband that now he's on his way to NMD and he's devoting some of his time to that. And he's gotten on the phone with, on Zoom calls with men, professional men, and he brings a lot of validity to the business. You know, he got on the a Zoom with our chiropractors in Missouri and gave so much great validity to our business model that those men, without hesitation, jumped in wholeheartedly. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and I'm leaving to go to the NMD mastermind call that is right now, so I can hopefully learn some things that other teams are doing and bring them back to y'all. So, Steve, take it away. And Sandy, I'm going to turn the host over to you. I don't think anybody else is going to join us, but just in case. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, sure. So before I get started though, I'm gonna make some, I think, pretty shocking statements. I want to shake y'all up a little bit. Um, and the first one is that I'm gonna share some tough truths with y'all. And if tough truths make you uncomfortable, I suggest you go ahead and, you know, don't stay on the call. Um, and Also want to just tell you that I think the way I perceive sort of things is that Sharon is, uh, the good cop, if you will, and I'm the bad cop. So I'm going to be the bad cop. I don't know if you ever watch any TV detective shows, but usually the good cop comes in, makes friends with the person they're interrogating and, or questioning, and it's the bad cop comes in, roughs them up and all that, but it helps the good cop be able to get things there. So I'm a little bit going to be a bad cop, if you will, but it's in the spirit of because Sharon and I care deeply about y'all. And so just understand in advance that's the spirit in which this is being offered up. And even though Sharon asked me to talk about paycheck, and I will, I want to start with before we get there, I think that it is so critical to understand two primary things about this business. The first one is mindset. You have to have the right mindset, and the people who are going to succeed in this business have to, hang on a second. Hey, Sharon, can you go? I can't hear. Can you move that? Sharon? Sharon, can you move that? I can't hear. All right. And so uh, you got to start with mindset. And a gazillion years ago, when I was a young banker, one of my very successful oil and gas clients told me that, Stephen, in the business world, you need to understand there are one of two things. There are either reasons or there are results. And as I think about things, I've heard a lot of people over time in the Juice Plus community give all the reasons that their paycheck is not advancing or that, and these are things that reflect the paycheck, the customers are not in all these reasons. But what I have noted, just like what that businessman told me, and it applies in Juice Plus, is the people who focus instead of trying to get all the reasons in the way of why they're not succeeding, they figure out what the results need to be and how do you get there. And so I just want to really reinforce that. And then the next most important thing, and this is really germane to what Sharon and I are going to ask you to do, you've got to be coachable. These two, these two ingredients are what will, and then you have to work, right? You got to be willing to do the work. And so those three things make a recipe for success, but it starts with mindset. If you got stinking thinking, you're never going to get better. You're just not. You're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay stuck at whatever level you're at. You might regress. You may drop out of the business. So mindset's really important. And the next thing is you got to be coachable. You know, uh, look at look at professional athletes, whoever, you know, they don't just say, well, I've got a good golf swing. It's perfect. No, it's not. They're always working on making it better. Coachable people are really important. The definition of insanity, I'm sure you've heard it. It's doing the same thing the same way over and over again and then being frustrated with the results. Well, duh. If you don't change the way you're doing things, you're not going to get anything different. Period, paragraph, full stop. So before I launch into that, I wanted to just kind of start there by saying those things. And then, of course, you got to work the business, but this is kind of like a loop, if you will. You got to keep going back. What's your mindset? Yes, we're going to have disappointments, but you got to discipline your disappointments. You got to reframe it. You got to think about, you know what, I talked to 50 people and they said no. Well, what that means is some percentage of those are going to come back and say yes. If you stay stuck on no, you're never going to progress. So the paycheck matters. And for some of us, I say us just collaboratively, not anybody specific, but the paycheck, if you don't want to think about the money yourself, then you have to think in terms of the paycheck reflects the number of lives that you are impacting for healthier living and the number of people whose lives who are in the business actively working, their financial health. And so if your paycheck is not growing, guess what? You're not impacting as many lives, and you're not helping people who need the money. And there are people like that who actually need the money. It makes a difference to them. I will tell you, for Sharon and I, even though we live in a pretty affluent community in Blue Ridge, this place up here is a place where for people to have an opportunity to make $500 to $1,000 a month extra is a big deal for some of these people. But we also have people that make really good incomes, and it's still important to them too, because it allows them to give more money to their church or something. So, um, I just think that's really important to think about those things. And Sharon asked me to share my story, which some of you may have heard, but and this goes to mindset. It also goes to coachability and then effort. But when Sharon started in the business, I was embarrassed that she was in the direct sales business because I thought that was pretty yucky. I wasn't very excited about it. And so, that was a mindset thing. I was stuck on that. And we didn't really need the income. I was a pretty highly paid executive at that time. We didn't need the money. And it was an expensive hobby for Sharon because she was passionate about the health, but she really wasn't running it as a business. And then, as you all may know, the press release said I resigned to pursue other opportunities. But the reality is, I got fired because I had a huge conflict with the CEO. And and then Sharon, appropriately as the mother bear, threw down the gauntlet and said, I don't care if your other job opportunities aren't in Atlanta, we're not moving. So, because of kids. And so, I said, fine, but then you're going to have to start making your Juice Plus paycheck be big enough to cover certain things and all that. And I went to the conference. And the conference was really, really helpful to help shape my mind differently. And I may not be a lot of positive things, but one thing I am positive about, I'm a very coachable person. I've been that way my whole life. And I'm not trying to sound braggadocious, but you don't go from being a banker to CFO of a public company and then becoming a COO and CEO unless you're willing. You can't do the same thing over and over again. You got to stop and go, what else do I need to learn? And that's part of advancing is what do I need to learn? So I really, really, really want you to understand that. Um, and then I'm going to speak some other hard truths. And someday when I give my NMD speech, and I hope to, I'm going to be a real truth teller up there. I'm not going to try and talk about what I did as NM to get NMD, because here's the truth of the matter is Juice Plus is a woman female to female, mostly business. Period, paragraph, full stop. Yes, do some men sign up for it? Yes. And yes, are there founders who are, you know what? The truth is, I like truth. Those folks came in when Juice Plus was selling air filters. And guess what? It's real easy for a guy to sit around and talk about smoke detectors and air filters to another guy. All right. And then they migrated to Juice Plus and then they have morphed. But the reality is, this is a really heart connected thing. And so, what I have figured out trying to be coachable is how can I, as a husband, support Sharon in her efforts? What does that look like? And so I'm going to, yeah, she was very kind to talk about, these business, there were chiropractors and doctors that I've talked to. And can I speak business lingo? Of course I can. But those are the one-offs in our business. The real foundation of Juice Plus is finding, you know, this is true 60% of the time, but finding a mother or a grandmother who cares about her children or her family health and starting there, and then recruiting people who care about that too, and for whom the paycheck, whether it represents lives impacted for better health or they need the money, they come along on the journey. The reality is, guys are kind of, husbands, spouses, significant, we're just kind of along for the ride unless we really want to help our wives. And so, what I finally figured out was here's how I can help Sharon. Yes, I'm available for calls, I'm available to do that. But you know the way I can really help her? I've taken on household tasks, taking care of, errands, et cetera, so that she can have the time to devote to the Juice Plus business. And when and if, not when, if, but when I make that Juice, that's a mindset thing. When I make that Juice Plus NMD speech, I'm going to talk about, you know what? And so for those of you who have a spouse or a significant other, I'm glad to talk to them about, you know, if this is important to your wife, then you need to show her it's important, not by coming in and trying to tell her how to, which is what I started off doing. It didn't work. Here's what you need to do. You know what? That's all wrong. Sharon knew how to do it. She just needed to learn some additional things on how to grow the business and some other things. Um, that's not what that's about. It's you need to go, how can I support? If it's important to you, then how can I show you that I know it's important to you? And so that's one of the things that I am available to do, which is this. To wrap this part of that up, I was supposed to tell you all this. If you have the right mindset, if you are coachable, and if you really want to grow your paycheck, and this applies to all of your downline as well, then Sharon wants, not this week because it's the close of business, but what she wants you to do is to reach out and schedule a one-on-one coaching call with her. Be open to hearing about some questions around your own mindset. Be prepared to hear some questions around, are you really coachable? Are you really wanting to do things differently? And you don't need to do different things differently if you're just on a meteoric rise to the top. But everybody can get better. I had no way of knowing when I started out repossessing cars. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. I was the first person in my family that graduated from high school. I'm the first person in my family that went to college. My first job after college, I repossessed cars and collected bad debt door to door in the ghetto in Houston. And so I had no idea that I could someday become CEO of a public company. But what got me there was I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it the best I can. I'm open to learning how to do things differently. and I was willing to put in the effort. And that can be true for you too. But if you're stuck on any of those three loops, you're not going to progress. You're just going to be on this wheel. You're going to keep churning. You're going to keep going round and round and round and round. Oh, and then Sharon said, because she voluntold me, that part of that coaching call is I'll be on the call with her. So, um, the other thing too, I wanted to give you an update on the active listening seminar. I've been working on that. I'm really wanting it to be very high quality. So, I've been doing a few hours a week working, doing some research on it. I'm not going to just rehash the ones I've done because I really want to make it a little more applicable to Juice Plus. But that's coming. And I would say this, sign up for that regardless of whether you want to, think about it from your business, but it's really a good tool for all of your relationships, regardless. And it's great for interactions. Active listening will enable you to be more successful in your personal life. And if you apply it in your business life, it will also make you more successful in your business life. I was playing golf this last weekend with a guy, and he asked me, Steve, what was the best business advice somebody ever gave you? What has enabled you to be successful? Whatever the heck successful is. As a Christian, success to me is not material accomplishments. But in the world's eyes, being, financially successful or whatever, which we have been, however you want to define that. Do we have a Gulf Stream? No. I've been on one, but I don't own one. I've been on several actually. But anyway, and I said, it's two simple things. I said, it's really kind of simple. I said, but the best advice I ever got, number one was God made us with two ears and one mouth. And we should use those in that proportion. And he added, and by the way, Steve, and he was actually speaking because I had a tendency to talk a little too much at that time. He said, when was the last time you ever learned anything when you were talking? I want you to let that sit in. That's number one. And so that does go to that active listening thing again. It's just powerful. And then the second thing was, what was the other thing? And I said, well, the second thing was, it's so simple. I probably shouldn't even share it on a Juice Plus call like this, but I'm going to because you may be curious. And it was, it doesn't matter how much money you make because you're not going to have any if you don't save some of it. So anyway, just good sound financial, simple stuff, right? Uh, so with that being said, I am supposed to now tell you to make sure that you work very diligently through the end of the week because it is the close of business. Sharon asked me to make sure that I tell you to particularly focus on getting those declined credit cards converted because that can be an killer. And then all the other things you normally do at the end of the month. So, with that being said, and being very mindful of trying to end on time, I'm done.